Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 31, Rayburn Again. Jake was trapped, frozen in fear, and with every step Rayburn took, it became increasingly unlikely that Jake could escape. Think. And then it came to him. Rayburn wasn't really looking for a finger, or even for Jake. He was looking for a box, and he too would be under strict instructions not to open it. But there was no other option. Jake couldn't let him find the finger. The terrifying image of Mawkins flashed into his mind. Jake pushed it away. Quickly he reached for his rucksack, and clambering over into the back, he lay on the grubby floor and hid himself beneath the seats, Zorro jumping down there with him. As fast as he could, Jake unzipped his rucksack and took out the box. Then, feeling for the brass clasp with a shaking hand, he took a deep breath and opened it. Gritting his teeth in the darkness, he reached through the ripped newspaper and clutched the finger. It was the first time he'd touched it. It was smooth where the skin had tightened around the knuckles, then rough at the neatly severed end. Fighting a gag reflex, he quickly wrapped it in a napkin from the service station cafe and stuffed it back into his pocket. Then he closed the lid. But as he held the box, it felt wrong. It felt empty. He looked around for something, anything, to put in the box to replace the finger, but in the darkness of the van he could neither see nor feel anything to use. He reached again into his pocket. There, nestling beside the napkin-wrapped severed finger of a long-dead composer possessed by one of the 12 reapers of the afterworld, was his precious mobile phone. He could hear Rayburn's footsteps crunch on the gravel outside the van. With only seconds left, he quickly placed his phone into the box, covered it with a newspaper, and shoved it into his rucksack. Then he zipped the bag back up and tossed it in between the front seats. Finally, he pulled Dad's big wax jacket down from the seat above to cover him and Zorro, and lay in the dark, his heart pounding. Just in time. There was a loud rattle right by Jake's head, the sound of someone trying the door at the back of the van. To Jake's relief, it was locked. Then there was a click, the sound of someone having more luck with the driver's door. It opened and the van swayed as the large man climbed aboard. There was a triumphant grunt. He'd found the bag. He heard the man muttering and the sound of the zip being opened. It went quiet for a moment. "Hello," said Rayburn. Jake held his breath. "He's not here." Jake breathed out quietly. Rayburn was talking on a phone. Jake could faintly hear a voice on the other end of the line. "Nope," said Rayburn gruffly, "but the box is. Of course I haven't opened it. Right, I'll meet you at the graveyard." And then Rayburn stood up and climbed down from the van, slamming the door behind him. After a minute, Jake slowly peeked out from the jacket, Zorro sticking his nose out too. All was quiet. Jake felt something move in his pocket. He slid his hand in, expecting to find his phone, but then remembered his phone was now inside a box, in the possession of the psychopathic henchman of an unknown villain, hell-bent on helping a fallen reaper take over the afterworld. So if the movement wasn't his phone, what else was in his pocket? A sickness welled up in Jake's stomach as he realised. The finger! He took it from his pocket and looked at it wriggling in the palm of his hand. It was the most stomach-churningly awful thing he'd ever seen. A severed human finger, yellowed by age, long since dismembered from its accompanying body, wriggling and flexing as though it was alive, slowly working its way out of the old napkin that had held it, like some kind of horrific, withered grub emerging from a papery cocoon. Its long fingernails scratched lightly against Jake's palm as it struggled for purchase. It seemed to be seeking something outside the camper van. Something evil. Why had it started moving? Jake was sure it hadn't done that before, but then he'd only opened the box once before. He wrapped the finger up again in the napkin and shoved it deep into his pocket. He needed to tell someone what he'd seen, what he'd done. He needed good morning before Rayburn came back. Checking no one was outside, he climbed from the van. Zorro moved to follow him. "Stay here, Zorro. This could be dangerous. I'll be back soon." He gave the sad-looking ghost fox a last scratch behind the ear and closed the door quietly behind him. Taking care to keep to the shadows, Jake ran through the mud and into the embassy of the dead. Oh, how about that? Who was Rayburn talking to? So it's his boss.
Yeah.
And what about that finger moving? Why do you think it's moving?
I think I don't know why it's moving, but I still think that good morning is sus.
Yeah, okay. I wonder if it's moving because now it's out of the lead box. It can sense. Maybe it's quite close because he said meet you in the graveyard, right? So maybe they're quite close to the graveyard and maybe the finger is trying to get back to the body. Now it's out of its lead box. It can wriggle away. Ugh.